evening, peoples. I am Pastor Leia, and this is Ginger Snap introducing herself again. Welcome back to our living room for our Bible study series going through the Apostles. I don't recall what, part 18, I think, at this point. We had the 12 main apostles, depending on who those are, and then some of the bonus disciples. So tonight I wanted to finish off with the final of our bonus apostles, Silas. Of course, Silas, maybe you can see this one coming, is also known as Sylvanus, because of course he is. So Silas is a figure, a character who's pretty prominent in the book of Acts, whereas in some of the epistles, Paul refers to Sylvanus, but it's kind of like, Sylvanus, who might have been traveling to in these places that Silas and Paul went to in Acts. So it's a Greek name and a Roman name, so maybe Sylvanus is the Romanized form of Silas, or maybe Silas is like the Greek version of Sylvanus. Sure. Anyway, so if, for example, in the letter of 1 Peter, we read, through Sylvanus, whom I consider a faithful brother, I've written this short letter to encourage you and to testify that this is the true grace of God. Stand fast in it. There's a few other little bits in various epistles where we see Sylvanus, because of course we do. So in the book of Acts, so Paul and Barnabas, who we met before, and Silas, and also Judas Barsabbas, a good Judas called Barsabbas, not to be confused with the other. Anyway, so they all go to Antioch with a nice little letter of introduction written for them from the other apostles. So they're traveling around, they're preaching. So then also we read, Judas and Silas, who were themselves prophets, said much to encourage and strengthen the believers. So, which is nice. I like that. They get a credit for what they're doing. It's not all about Paul. Most of Acts seems to be about Paul, but I like that we share some of the credit here. So then Silas and Paul head off to Syria together. So while they are there, we have rather a central story in Paul's life. Also Silas's, for sure. We'll be getting to Paul later, so tonight it's Silas. So they kind of get arrested. So they are traveling together, preaching together, and they encounter a slave girl who has a spirit of divination. I didn't look up what it is in the Greek. And so her owners, because, you can totally own human beings, that was sarcasm, make money off of her because she can, tell people's fortunes or whatever. So this slave girl encounters Paul and Silas, and she's just following them around the city all day for several days, crying out, "These men are slaves of the Most High God who proclaim to you a way of salvation." So, clearly, regardless of how she's making money for her owners, she sees something in these two men, that they are, belonging to the Most High God and come to proclaim a way of salvation. So maybe this, anyway. So Paul has just had enough of this. It is just annoying. To be fair, I would kind of hate it if some random person was following me around a city for days on end, yelling about me. I think I would have flipped sooner. Anyway, so Paul just exercises the spirit of divination, but now her owners can't make money off of her, and that's just inconvenient. I mean, what's the point of owning a human being if it's not to your personal financial benefit? So they drag Paul and Silas to the authorities, and they kind of incite a mob. And so the two apostles are attacked, stripped, beaten, flogged, arrested, and then their feet are put in stocks, which is all the verbs from that section of the story. It's a lot of verbs. So I wanted to read the next section of the story. So they are now in prison with their feet tied up in stocks. About midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. Suddenly there was an earthquake, so violent that the foundations of the prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's chains unfastened. When the jailer woke up and saw the prison doors wide open, he drew his sword and was about to kill himself, since he supposed that the prisoners had escaped. But Paul shouted in a loud voice, "Do not harm yourself, for we are all here." The jailer called for lights, and rushing in, he fell down trembling before Paul and Silas. Then he brought them outside and said, "Sirs, what must I do to be saved?" They answered, "Believe on the Lord Jesus, and you will be saved, you and your household." They spoke the word of the Lord to him and to all who were in his house. At the same hour of the night he took them and washed their wounds. Then he and his entire family were baptized without delay. He brought them up into the house and set food before them, and he and his entire household rejoiced that he had become a believer in God. This is the word of the Lord. So they are in prison, and of course in the first century, believe it or not, the prison system was different than it is now. It was really like a holding place for a trial or execution. You wouldn't be like sentenced to prison. It was, trial and then execution probably. But also if, so the jailer is very responsible for the lives of the people in the prison. So if they all escape, he might be the one getting executed instead of the prisoners. So when there's an earthquake and all the doors are opened and all of the chains are unfastened, and so the prisoners have the opportunity to just, run off and be done with it. But not these prisoners. Paul and Silas stay put. And in doing so, they save the jailer's life. And he'd been about to die by suicide rather than have to face a public and painful execution. But by staying, Paul and Silas might be executed themselves if the jailer doesn't be like, "Oh, yeah, okay, well, you are obviously men of such strong faith that I would like to have what you have." And then also he speaks for them, and they end up being free. They're not executed. Spoiler alert, I guess. It has a happy ending. But I love that he's just so blown away by this act of courage and sacrifice that Paul and Silas choose to remain his prisoners in order to save his life. That he wants to believe what they believe, he wants to learn what they have to teach him, and he wants to be baptized, and his whole family is baptized and brought into the family of faith that night. And that's very life-changing, just meeting these two men and seeing their response. I also love that they're praying and singing hymns at midnight to the other prisoners, and I can't decide whether that would be kind of annoying for the other prisoners who were maybe trying to sleep because it's night, or if maybe they also were inspired by these hymns. I don't know. Anyway, so that is Silas, the final of our bonus apostles. So if you join us next week, we will get into some evangelists who are not among the apostles. But if you can't wait until next Tuesday for another Bible study video with Ginger Snap and me, I know she's the main appeal, it's fine, anyway. You could also join me, not her, just me, in person on Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. We are reading Mere Christianity and discussing it. We just started last week, so we're in the first few chapters still, but we would love to have you join us. There's some more copies in the office if you would like a copy, and would love to see you. I'm sure I've mentioned a bajillion times that our in-person Bible study group was one of the things that I missed the most from the before times. So I'm glad that I can start it up again. So I will continue doing these videos for a while. She loves doing them so much. You're a good cat. And also, if I forget to mention it, next Tuesday we are starting a church game night, so board games and tabletop games and fun things. That will be next Wednesday at the church at 7. Again, no cat, but other fun humans. Hopefully, I hope you aren't just here for the cat. Though she is very pretty. Anyway, yes, that was our apostles. So, good night.